And welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast, and happy New Year to everybody. Hope all y'all are taking care of yourselves. Hopefully, sticking to your resolutions because I sure as hell am trying my best. I'll probably stop probably around mid February and say I did it, but that's just me. But before we dive in, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos with everybody that you know. And and just to give you a heads up, starting around March, we will be introducing a new feature called the 60-second review, where Lee will be reviewing a movie in less than a minute. So be sure to check that out once it arrives. But today we have another great guest. We've got Alex Patten here, and we're going to have a great chat today. Alex, how are you doing, my man?
Good. How are you?
Uh, whew, not too bad. Just just hanging in there. 2024, is barely started, but you kind of have to adjust yourself. It's like that with at the beginning of every new year. You know what I mean?
hmm
So um, so Alex, why don't you go ahead and just start tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you currently do at the moment.
Okay. Well, I am from Winston-Salem, born and raised. I got into acting actually this past summer. I was a semi-pro baseball player for about 2 years. I still play here and there, but honestly, I really got into acting. I enjoy this part of what God's created. I like to do it as much as I can. So anytime I see a opportunity to be an extra anywhere, I that is the first thing I do. That is the first thing I did. So just get my foot in the door. But honestly, as I want to start to grow, actually get lead roles, star in some things. So honestly, the sky's the limit for me.
So I mean, that's really fascinating. So you actually started off playing baseball. I mean, did the idea of acting ever cross your mind before then, or was it more of a recent thing?
Well, sort of when I was a little kid, I always liked movies, always liked TV shows, I always saw up and coming actors that of course I'm like, hey, I always thought that said as a joke, hey, if my baseball career doesn't go well, I definitely want to be an actor.
Hmm.
And I got the opportunity. Actually, what got me into all this was there was an ad on Instagram. I was on Instagram one day, and there was an ad from 99 saying, "Who wants to be an extra in the Outer Banks?" Which is probably the greatest show on the East Coast today. As I'm sure Stuart Casting can say the same thing. But I honestly, and that it just opened up this whole entire avenue. Then next thing you know, I start joining Facebook groups that post ads. Hey, we need an extra this day. We need a lead role this day. We audition for this and audition for that. And of course, I was there at School of the Arts a few weeks ago trying to get in some roles for their spring film. For their spring film. So I'm just waiting to hear back on that. And for the record, I mean, I've loved doing this. I was an extra in God's Not Dead, um, 5, which is should be coming out sometime this year. My goal is to be in some sports movies and well sports TV shows, and of course the main goal is to be in the Outer Banks, which I continue to submit my information to, but it hasn't. Of course, I haven't gotten casted for it yet, but of course, I'm still going to try until I do. But
Hmm.
so I've definitely enjoyed. This has definitely been a lot of fun. I mean, this has definitely been the highlight of 2023 for me, and it will continue to be through 2024, 2025, and beyond. So, honest and truly, I've enjoyed doing this.
So that's pretty fascinating. So you start from playing baseball, and then and then you decide to become an extra in all these shows and movies. So just to make sure, you never studied acting, or you never had any acting classes before
Nope.
then?
Actually, I was in act. I took theater arts from, I think, from from my freshman to junior year, but other than that, that was it.
Okay, gotcha. So when you're on these sets, and and you're taking direction, how I mean, do you like develop any backstory for the character, or do you try to get into the character's head? What's your methodology when it comes to that?
Well, honestly, it's whatever the director wants me to do. Of course, they have. Well, of course, we're just there to fill a role, which which they already have it planned out for us what we're going to do, and they just need us to execute the plan. And honestly, and precision is very key on a movie, on any kind of set. You got to be able to do exactly what they say, or else the movie is not, or the film is not going to turn out the way you want it. So you got to really pay attention. So I think the goal in for any extra is to listen. That is the biggest thing that you need to do. Listen and do what the director or associate director wants you to do. So I have um, de- definitely made sure that, of course, when every time I come on set, I mean, when I'm actually on the set, I make sure I listen to everything that the director, associate director wants me to do, and make sure I execute it the way they want me to do it.
So how do you prepare in that case?
I prepare usually, honest and truly, you prepare. Honestly, it's mainly about the extra roles that I have been in. They've been some non-speaking roles. Sometimes, a few times I've been in some speaking roles, but majority of the time I'm just there filling a gap, filling a hole. So honest and truly, you got to make sure that you dress the part. So honestly, they usually give out a list of attire, the way um the way they want you to dress, and definitely keep um some multiple options so that you have more to choose from. So you want to be over prepared than less prepared. I've learned that from being on a couple films. So you definitely bring, when they said bring in the right, these certain kinds of attire, make sure you bring multiple options, because it's always good to be over prepared than less prepared.
Can you give an example of something like that? Because I've heard people talk about that, but they never really clarified. So can you maybe give us an example or an anecdote about what that entails?
Sure. Well, when I was on God's Not Dead, I only brought one attire. And honestly, I felt like, and they sort of worked with it, but I mean, they had people bring suitcases full of clothes to make sure that they have exactly what the costume, um, uh, director and associate director, because, and honest and truly, you got to really make sure, because they don't want you don't the last thing that you want to do is drive all the way out to a set and be sent home because they don't you don't have what they need. Honestly, that, I mean, that hurts probably you more than it hurts them, because you're, I mean, you don't get to experience that experience. So honestly, people were bringing suitcases full of clothes, and I only had, the first day I was on God's Not Dead, I only had one set of clothes, and it I definitely I was lucky I was there. They decided to keep me, and then at the same time, the next time I try to dress and get more, bring more attires, and I still wasn't prepared enough, because I they wanted me to bring wanted to be business attire, and my business attire and their business attire was a little bit different. So honestly, make sure that you research what business attire means or casual attire means, because you want to be ahead of the game. So honestly, so if a casting director sees you, they could say, hey, we could use you for multiple roles because of the attire that you have, and they or they may need you. They remember you and the attire you brought, the energy you brought. They um may say, hey, I want this guy in a future project. He did a great job for us then, and then I want I want to use him again. So honestly, always be prepared. That is the biggest thing I should tell an extra. Be over prepared, not just be prepared. Be over prepared.
So, so do they tell you specifically what what they want? Like like one shirt, a necktie, suit jacket,
Hmm.
or is it more like they just or was it more like business casual, and then you kind of interpret what they mean from there.
Yeah, sometimes it's both. Sometimes they usually want you to bring like no brand shirts that has a brand like Nike, Adidas across your. I mean, they usually want solid colors, um, and they want you to. I mean, they want you to fit the scene that they're doing. Like I was for God's Not Dead 5, first scene I was in, I was at a political rally. And you'll see all this when God's Not Dead 5 comes out. And next scene I was there for 2 days. I was there we were at a business office. Everyone was business casual. And we were just walking around while they were meeting about some business plan. And then honestly, I there was a scene where I was in with Dean Kane. That was a lot of fun. If you don't know who Dean Kane is, you definitely need to do your research. So I was there acting like we just came out from partying, and we acted like we were watching the results of his political campaign. So, but basically, you want to make sure you bring enough energy in the right set of attire to make sure that they want, when they ask you to come, that it's not much about like, hey, I get to be in a movie. Listen, you get to, yes, you get to be in a movie, but you got to do exactly what they tell you to do. So they already have a plan. It's your job to do the plan. So.
So, so I want to circle back a bit because because you mentioned before that when you first started out, you went into social media. Can you walk me through the process of what it was like to go from you know go from trying to find these parts to actually getting the part and then being on the set? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, usually, um, majority of what these productions do is they post ads on Facebook groups. That's mainly that's mainly what they do, and of course, there's other avenues, but I found all the things that I've been in on Facebook groups, and usually it says, "Hey, we're looking for this." Usually they give an age range, ethnicity, race, and sometimes they, "Hey, we just need somebody," and they give a list of description. And they just go, hey, we need to. we need this person this day, this day. Are you fully committed with no other obligations? Um, that day or in that time. So honestly, and they said if you're interested, email us a headshot, which headshot description height. They usually the description is um your height, weight, hair color, um let's see, pants length, shirt length. Um they want to basically see, so when you get on set, they have an idea of what they can have you do. And if it's a good fit, hey, they'll email you back and say, "Hey, we need you this day." And some 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 roles are paid and some roles are unpaid. So you sort of want to, do you want to get paid for the me, which everyone likes to get paid. Everyone likes to get paid. But starting out, I took some non-paying roles just to get my foot in the door. So honestly, so when there was some paying roles, I already had my resume built up, so I can do um, so I can do paid roles. And of course, my goal is, of course, you got to start somewhere. So I was an extra, and I still do extra work, but my goal eventually is to g- climb up the ladder, go up the ladder, featured role, lead role, then star and some things. So honestly, sky's the limit for me.
So did you pick up an agent or did you talk to anybody about representation? Because I know sometimes that's one of the things that people recommend that you get in order to get your foot in the door, or were you just doing it all by yourself?
What I what 99, the agency that I joined, they have you pay a monthly subscription, and they have it all set up. They have you send, like, when you're about to send your comp card, which that's what they call it, to casting directors. They have um let's see, they have it all sort of organized. So all you have to do is put their email in the email box and just press send. And I pay a monthly subscription for that. And also their organization cast me for um they take your name and they put it in a database, and they try to find castings for you as well. But mainly it has been me, just going on Facebook groups and seeing what productions need, and just literally just taking my information, or taking the email that they tell you to send it to, just put in my 99 profile and just press send. And if I get booked or casted, I get casted. If I don't, I don't. But honestly, it's been more of me um finding the productions myself, but they still find you productions also. So it's sort of a two-way street.
Okay, so it's not necessarily guaranteed. It's just they kind of help facilitate the casting process, right?
Yes, nothing is guaranteed. And of course, you know this. Nothing is guaranteed in production ever.
So another thing I want to ask you too, have you gone out and tried to like network with filmmakers directly to see if they can kind of cast you if they if they need it, or do you mainly just stick to the agency as your main source?
Actually, I honestly, I'm a sponge. So honestly, I've actually gone up when I was in God's Not Dead. I literally got the information of the associate director, his contact information, as well as one of the guys behind the scenes. So honestly, one of the guys behind the scenes said he does a lot of Hallmark movies, Lifetime movies, as well as, I mean, he said he's always on the go doing something. I'm like, hey, can I get your information? I just tell him I'm just trying. I'm getting my foot in the door, and my goal is to move up the ladder. Can you help me? And they said, yeah. I mean, they some casting directors are willing to give their information, and some are not. So honest and truly, I was very blessed that they were able to give that information to me, and I can use that in the future. I can just decide that, hey, I are you remember me? I was this person in this production. Can you if you ever need any kind of an extra role or a lead role, I'm trying to get from my information. I'm just trying to grow build my resume, go up the ladder. Can you help me out? And of course, I mean, it's all about who you know, and I mean, that's what you're going to figure out. Well, I figured out in baseball, the more you're around the sport or any or how the process, the more big names you're going to know. So the more you're around these group of people, the longer you're here, the more big names you're going to know. So it's sort of the same thing with life. The more you're around it, like, let's say, um I'll go back to baseball. Well, I have played with and against some multi-year MLB vets, as well as trained with some as well, and that's just from me being in baseball for this amount of time. And same thing is, I mean, hey, I met Dean Kane when I was on the set of Guys Not Dead 5. So I mean, you never know who you're going to run across. Every person is there for a reason. Every person on the set is there for a reason. So honestly, I am there the entire time. I'm there listening, as well as I'm getting everybody's contact information as I can. So honestly, because I mean, I love. I have really found a passion doing this stuff. So I have really tried to find out how I can grow myself and build my resume. So it's basically it's who you know and all the people, and it's always just being kind, being a people person. Because honestly, no one wants to grouch. No one wants to be this person that is a pain. Because that is, I mean, if you're a pain to the casting directors or to the people on the set, that's going to be the last time that they see of you. But honestly, make sure that you listen to what they want and also get to know them a little bit. And so honestly, if they have a future project, hey, I'm like, hey, I like this guy's personality. I like this guy. I liked how he treated me as well as the casting members. And I may need this project. I mean, you get something out of the blue. Hey, I was this casting director in this production. Can you uh p- can you send me your information? I may have a role for you. You never know who you're going to run across. So always be a people person. Be kind. Always be on your best behavior. I think etiquette and behavior is another key thing on being in productions.
So, are you mainly working in projects in the Winston-Salem area, or have you had to travel a bit?
I've traveled the farthest I've traveled was to South Carolina, which it was right on the border with Charlotte and South Carolina to be on God's Not Dead 5. But honestly, they they're filming the Outer Banks in Charleston, South Carolina right now. And
Yeah.
so my goal, I mean, I literally tell them, I mean, hey, this is the reason I got into this. So honestly, I don't mind driving to Charleston to be in this. So honestly, the majority of the stuff that I have been in has been in North Carolina. But honestly, it's my as I start to build up my resume more and more, and my bank account starts to get more and more, I definitely want to travel and go as far as I can.
So you did mention earlier that you want to move up from being an extra to having more lead roles. Uh, Have um have you or has anybody told you to consider taking acting classes to kind of, build up your repertoire? Because I know because I've heard some people mention that in the past.
I've come across the idea, but I mean, that's something to consider. I mean, if it helps me gain an advantage, to be in acting classes, and to eventually, which I mean, honestly, you could be taking a class at. I mean, I'm very blessed to have School of the Arts here in Winston Salem,
Hmm.
but there's people that are taking doing acting classes on the other side of town that could get you nowhere. I mean, it depends on, I mean, make sure that you do an acting class with someone with a reputation that will cast people to big name productions. So honestly, I definitely want to consider that more. So honestly, as I start to go along, I may want to do that.
So so hypothetically, if someone from Outer Banks came up to you and said, "Hey, Alex, we want to cast you in in a recurring role," um, we'll probably just have you appear on this number of episodes for this season. Um, would you still consider taking acting courses, or would you just like dive right in and kind of just like I guess wing it for lack of a better word?
When
I know that's not the best way to phrase it, but
no, no,
but you kind of get where I'm
no.
getting at here. Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're getting from. I would say that, I mean, if Outer Banks came a calling and said, "Hey, we need you this day," I'd definitely do it. And honestly, if it would give me an advantage, if I would gain something from doing acting classes, I definitely would do it. So I think honestly and truly, I think honestly only if it would benefit me more if for for me to do acting classes. So also I do sing as well. I sort of sing in my praise band at church, and I've done some small gigs as well. And so I highly consider doing voice lessons as well. So I would honestly I this is a whole avenue I've been in for less than a year, and I've gotten my foot in the door in some really cool places. So it's you never know what you're going to come across, and what your ultimate goal or what you'll end up doing. So I definitely just always be kind, be prepared, and listen and follow directions. So those are the big four things I should say when you're just starting out.
Right. I mean that's pretty good advice, and that's actually advice that you hear, y- from a lot of guests, whether it's working in front of the camera or behind the camera.
Mm,
Just because, like you said earlier, nobody wants to work with a difficult person. So so obviously, the more easier you are to work with, the more they're likely to just say, "Hey, this guy's definitely willing to take directions. He's willing to learn. Let's go ahead and see what we can do with him." Um,
absolutely.
so let me ask you this: as you're in Winston Salem, I mean, you're actually the second guest I've had on the show who's from that area. Oh, can you talk about what the film scene is like over there? Because I don't imagine there's much going on there, but at the same time, you know, I don't live in the area, so I don't really know. What is what's the film scene like in Winston, and do you think there's like enough going on to where it could potentially become like a pretty big scene like it is in Charlotte or in Wilmington?
Of course, we got the North Carolina Film Festival here in Winston,
Hmm.
and of course, you got School of the Arts. You got two big art organizations here in Winston Salem. Actually, the first production I was in, it was in a downtown movie. No, excuse me, it was a downtown restaurant, a Mexican restaurant. The production was called O and Zero. It was about um, a military members with PTSD, um, well, ex-military with PTSD having to adapt to today's society,
Hmm.
and basically, I think there is a group that I'm definitely going to, as soon as I get done with this, I definitely want to research this more. Um, it's called the Actors Group. The guy that runs it was if you remember the movie, remember the Titans. He was Ray, sort of the racist guy that eventually gets kicked off the team.
Hmm.
He owns a group called the Actors Group, which I'm thinking about joining as well. And of course, he's been in other movies as well, but that's been the main one that people know him from.
And that's in Winston.
Yes, that is in Winston.
Okay. So because I live here in Charlotte, and I know I know of a few productions that they filmed. In fact, back in the '90s, they filmed "Shallow Hal" in South Park, at that big house. And then I remember, I think it was like '98 or '99, they filmed the TV movie "Shake, Rattle, and Roll" in my old neighborhood. Um,
Okay.
so so obviously Charlotte does have some clout when it comes to being a production house. Do you? Have you seen or have you experienced any major productions in the Winston Greensboro area?
Um, not like having Adam Sandler or Will Ferrell come and film a production here in Winston-Salem. No, that something big that wouldn't happen. If that was the case, the papers and TV would be all over it.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
right.
so I definitely nothing big has happened like that. But again, it could happen. I mean, Winston Salem. I mean, we're here the Triad. We're here. I mean, an hour or two. You're from the mountains, and then about two and a half. You're smack dab in the middle of the state. 2 hours away from the beach, and then 2 hours away from the mountains. So honestly, you get the best of both worlds when you come here. So there's definitely a lot of big opportunities to film things, but no, I have not come across some big films filmed right here in Winston Salem. But I mean, anything can happen. I mean, it could be out of the blue as well. So they find a place that they like to do productions, and then um, next thing you know, you'll hear about it on a Facebook group or somebody, and then um they'll give you the information, or you'll find out the information. If it works out, it works out. Honestly, you're never guaranteed anything in this business, and it's sort of the same way with baseball. You're never guaranteed. I mean, you may be on a roster one day, but then the next thing you're not. So you always got to be you got to treat it like it's your last production or it's your last game. You always never take anything for granted.
So, I actually do want to circle back to you starting off at baseball. Can you tell me a little bit about what you were doing before acting when you were playing baseball? Were you playing in the minor leagues, or were you just playing for like a club, or what?
well, I played baseball in college, and then I played in a semi-pro league that travels around the country, playing different indie ball teams. Like players, like we could play the High Point Rockers one day or the Gastonia Honey Hunters. Um, but at the end of the day, let's see. So as a baseball player, I was always on the go. I was always traveling. Like you're at a game one day, next thing you know, you're in the car traveling to a game here. So you always got to be flexible with your schedule, and you always got to be. I mean, you never take anything for granted. So enjoy. I think one of the things one of my coaches told me is always enjoy the moment. So you never know when it's going to be your last, or you never know when what's going to happen. So always enjoy where you are in the present time. So honestly, make the most of every situation. So that was my goal as a baseball player, and that's definitely going to be my goal as an actor.
So I definitely want to go ahead and wrap this up. But before we go, um, if people want to reach out to you or people want to learn more about you, where can they go?
Well, they can follow me on Instagram. It's Patton Pride or Patton_Pride 1. And also I have a motivational quote page, Patton_Pride 2, as well as they can find me on Facebook at Alex Patten. And it's spelled Patten. I have to correct people all the time, not Patton, like the
Not like
general.
General, yeah, I was gonna say like General Patton.
Yeah.
Um, so one last thing I wanted to ask you. Well, I guess second to last thing. Um, the actors strike ended late last year, and there's been a lot of hoo-ha about whether it's done the actors any good because they've lost a lot of income from the time they haven't been able to work. Do you do you think there's any benefit, or do you see yourself joining SAG at any point, or do you feel that's just more of a hindrance than a benefit?
I mean, honestly, I've sort of been doing some non-union things, so I don't have to worry about union having to worry about this situation, that situation. I always want to be able to have a job. So I try not to put myself on that kind of island, but honest and truly, Outer Banks is part of the SAG organization, as well as Cobra Kai. Actually, I'm pretty sure Cobra Kai is part of the union as well. God's Not Dead, thankfully, was not.
Hmm.
So we were able to film it, no problem. Um, but I know that's where a lot of the big you're going to find more big names in the SAG union. But I would definitely always keep yourself open. Always keep yourself open. If you want to put yourself in that on that island, go right ahead. I mean, but honestly, my advice was for me. I mean, you can always do union films as or you can always do union films without having being a part of the actual union. But if you want to always, I mean, never limit yourself. That's a better way of saying this. Never limit yourself on what you can do. You always want to have your options completely open.
Gotcha. So you really, so it sounds like you really wouldn't be interested in joining it unless you felt compelled to, kind of like with the whole acting school thing, right?
Mm-hmm. That's
Got
correct.
gotcha. Because you definitely don't want to find yourself in a situation where in a few years down the road, where if there's another strike, you may not be able to, get any work, because you've got to follow the rules of the union.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. So Alex, I can't thank you enough for coming onto the podcast and for being one of the first guests of 2024. I'm really happy that you came on. But before we sign off, obviously, I like to ask this of all my guests. Is there a particular movie or TV show that you've seen recently that you think is the best thing ever that you want to talk about?
American Underdog, the story of Kurt Warner.
Gotcha.
So
Well,
honest and true,
yeah, go ahead.
honestly, I was a big Kurt Warner fan. Knowing his story, it sounds a lot like my story about a guy that came from nothing that is ended up being a NFL Hall of Famer. And I mean, just to watch the struggle that he went to get to where he is, I can relate a lot to that. Then of course, love the Outer Banks. I mean, it definitely paints our coast real well on what exactly the scenery is like and what goes on. So honest and truly, again, sky's the limit. The next thing, I mean, one day I'd love to be alongside Adam Sandler doing a production. That'd be awesome. But and again, always enjoy the moment. Always never take anything for granted.
Excellent. Well, Alex, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast. And I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to watch this episode. Remember, if you're enjoying the content, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. And we are not going to stop producing more of these videos. We'll be doing more interviews and more reviews as the year progresses. So please remember to check us out and spread the word. We're now on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, and we're working to get set up on other channels. But thank you so much all for watching. And we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yeah, thanks for having me.